Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back as we break down stocks to buy live for passive income. And this is going to be a broad viewed conversation in the world of finance and security. It's been a shit show for sure. I'm sure many of you have seen the news this week. I'm all over the place. It's pretty late right now on a Sunday evening, but I appreciate you all stopping in. We're going to talk about the UnitedHealth CEO stuff because that's just super fascinating what's been going on in the news. We're going to talk about Plain Bagel. I don't know if you guys watched the Plain Bagel video. I'm going to cap a little bit of it and just offer some insight because it's super interesting in the world of sponsorships, stock market finance stuff. But before we get into any of that, we should just kind of broad view some of your questions. A lot of you already kicking the stream off strong. So VDY, SCHD, VOO for ETFs, your main core, then Meta, Google, ACT, Aduro there probably. How many actual holdings does the wife and I hold? Well, probably about 15 to 20 positions. Like we're talking about the securities themselves, like probably 15 or 20 max. I know it's somewhere in between there. We have just a lot of odd little things. We also have like her RSP is kind of like, I think, managed by a third party as well. So there's a lot of mixing up going on as the wife and I, finally surpassed that $1 million CAD mark, which doesn't feel as exhilarating when the Canadian dollar is tanking so miserably. But nonetheless, if you take a look at the portfolio here, guys, there's not too much going on other than I'm materially bearish on the market. And I'm just trying to invest as cautiously as humanly possible because like most stuff I'd want to own, I'm only going to own it to trade it. And I'm just looking at things like Google right now. I can still cost average into my ETFs comfortably, but the market as a whole is, a shit show right now. So I think most people that are financially aware are taking this super cautiously. What are you both thinking going all in NVIDIA? NVIDIA is another one of those stocks I just can't bring myself to hold. Because again, I don't know how long how long these picks are going to be getting sold for. And that's the thing that worries me the most, because there's a little hint, like when you're buying these high flying stocks, man, you have to be hyper aware of what you're doing if you're owning them individually right now. And NVIDIA is a great company. I think long-term it can continue to do well, but all of its money comes from one thing right now, and that's it. It's just AI chips, H100s, H200s are driving the bulk of their sales. So you got to kind of take that and understand if that ever comes to an end, just like the cyclicalities of everything that NVIDIA has done over their history, it tends to come with some pretty big ebb and flow. But it's up to you. I mean, it's whatever your risk tolerance is. Kyle, I know you don't like talking about crypto, but what do you think about the potential M&A from the big banks? I'm not sure what you mean by what do you think of the potential M&A. Honestly, I don't hate crypto at all. I'm honestly a little disappointed I didn't own a bit more of it, just from a diversification standpoint. We just got like a couple $1,000 sitting in it. I think it's crazy. I have nothing against it. I just don't care for it as much as like, I don't know, guys. What do you do? It's like gold. You buy it, you store it. I like real businesses, and there are a lot of real crypto businesses. They're just still in that same boat. We're just not scaling those businesses yet, right? So we're just back to another clown market. It's a trading market for crypto as well. If you like small cap crypto coins, I'd be trading them like crazy right now. Where do you think Canada is heading with all the immigration, refugees, and other people? I don't know. It's 2025. And I'll state this right now. 2025 is going to be one of the most wild years we're going to experience. I like think about how crazy this year's been, and like we're just getting started with like AI and jobs, self-driving, Trump and tariffs, and now we're heading into a whole new. I want to get into the meat and the potatoes of this stream. We've barely gotten started here yet, guys. So let's just take a broad view of the market this week, because first and foremost, it has been primarily tech that has been driving a lot of the gains this week. I mean, we've seen some absolutely absurd gains out of Tesla running to almost 400. Amazon's up 9%. Like you could have threw a dart at tech this week and have done just insanely well. I mean, Adobe's up, Palantir's up another 13%. Like these stocks, they just do not quit right now. On the Canadian side of the border, it's not as rosy, right? I mean, it's been pretty scattered, but luckily, even after the Canadian bank earnings, the Canadian banks as a whole, the sector was actually able to rise, which was quite impressive considering how hard we saw TD get slaughtered. National Bank, a couple of them just gotten super whipped, with the exception, I think, of BMO. But absolutely crazy. Do you think BOC will cut 20 to 50? Yeah, I think they will, but I don't like that they're doing it. I like that the U.S. is in such a strong position. They're not in a rush to cut. And I watched a guy today that was just saying, oh, they need to cut interest rates. It's going to be so much better for the Canadian economy. And I was like, how though? You kind of, again, you have that catch-22. If they're going to cut rates, the Canadian dollar is going to shit tank. And until the U.S. cut, and I think Jerome and the Federal Reserve knows what he's doing. I think he's well aware the longer and higher they leave rates, the better off the U.S. economy is going to be, because the U.S. dollar is just so damn strong, on international trade right now. Why fuck that up? I mean, if the economy is not crashing, Like, just leave the interest rates high because everyone's just flooding into USD right now. Do you have a Blossby account? I do, but I don't share my stocks on there as much. Maybe I'll end up using it more at some point in the future. Do you think TD dropped so hard due to the tax harvesting season? No, just uncertainty. They didn't offer guidance. They tanked on earnings just because they completely just said, forget guidance. It pissed analysts off. We don't know where the company's going. They want to kind of get through the hurdle of the fines they're dealing with before they start projecting anything out, which, again, scared. Analysts kind of control a lot of stocks these days, which doesn't make any obliterate sense, but hey, it is what it is. Rio can going to fly 25. Here we come. Yeah, the REITs should start to continue to bounce back if we do see rate cuts. Shout out from Brampton, Ontario. Pleasure. We got a lot of Canadians in here. What up, Kyle? Don, a pleasure to see you as well. But again, you look at the broader markets, guys, and if you're losing money right now, I'd feel bad for you because I just feel like you can't lose. I mean, I'm not seeing perhaps the face-ripping rallies I'd like to be seeing because I just didn't have the cojones to ride through the insanity of Tesla. I'd have doubled my money on Tesla, but I only made like a 40% gain on it instead. Why am I zooming in so much? Let me zoom out here. But I'm sure you guys have seen the stocks this week. You know them all. The same names, right? Like Meta is just pumping, Amazon. Google's finally getting a little bit of a rebound. Google's the only stock I love, man. It's one of the only stocks. I look at this thing and I'm like, we'll see what happens for it next year, but it's the only stock in the top 10 I can really give love to right now. Aduro bounced back. NVIDIA dropped a little bit here. NVIDIA is still great with the earnings they have. There's nothing wrong with it at this price. Like I said, it's just you don't understand past performance doesn't necessarily equal future return with underlying business fundamentals. But anyways, folks, that's kind of where we sit. I mean, no one's complaining. Everyone's happy. Yay, views are up. We're all screaming. Things are wonderful. But what I want to talk about is maybe let's dive into some of the nooks and crannies of the market you probably don't understand that falls more into like my realm of things. And if you haven't watched this video, I think you'll be wildly shocked by how much money influencers like myself end up getting paid. And I'm just shocked that nobody's put like a spotlight on this industry up till recently, especially with like all these meme coins that have been rug pulled, like the Hawk Tua stuff. It's always crypto, and it doesn't really seem to bleed into the the stock market side of things as much. But even CoffeeZilla, like, I think replied to this. Yeah, CoffeeZilla said, incredible work. Worth the subscribe. But I'll just show you one little bit and we'll actually take a look at what influencers are getting paid, because like some of these guys are actually my personal friends. But take a listen to this. It's wild.
I also have listed here the amount of money that these creators were paid for these videos. And the reason we know this amount is thanks to a nifty securities law known as the Anti-Touting Statute, or Section 17B of the Securities Act of 1933 in the US, which requires that anyone who is paid to promote a security disclose how much they were paid and who's behind the payment, among other details. Something that, while not regulated at the federal level in Canada, we do have similar expectations at the provincial level, namely in BC, where similar laws have actually been put in place. And again, we have some pretty hefty payments here, ranging from $500 for smaller channels to pretty commonly tens of thousands of dollars, and in a few cases, even more. Now,
I'm kind of leaving out context for those of you that are at a clue. I want to take a look at the spreadsheet, though. But just to summarize real quickly, and essentially what Kevin was doing, what we all have been doing, especially through 2022 when the markets were just pumping, companies would pay us thousands of dollars to just talk about them, interview their CEOs, whatever, right? And in marketing, you have to understand, like, high ticket items come with high ticket commissions, right? And essentially, if you're trying to sell a piece of real estate, and let's say I'm a marketer for you and I can bring you one deal. Well, in Canada, if that house is worth $1 million, I mean, that sale could be worth 30, 40, 50K in commissions to you, right? So like you can justify my marketing expense if I'm charging you, say, 50K for every 6 months or 100K for every 6 or 12 months or whatever, right? Because the high ticket is just there. It's like if I bring you a few clients, it's justified. And it's kind of similar in the stock market world. They want to like really pump capital into these companies so they can dilute. That's what they do, right? They need action in their stocks so they can raise the price, so they can pull some money out to continue to fund their whatever they're doing, presuming investors, believe in the future. But he was pointing out a lot of these companies do not do well because they are highly risky investments. And a lot of people do this relatively nefariously. I don't think I've ever done anything nefariously. I'm not here to like pump and dump, very honest about, when I'm being paid by these companies. And it's just weird. Nobody even knew this world existed. And here you are, like seeing these YouTubers that aren't even that big, making thousands upon thousands of dollars, right? And in my courses at kylelivingston.com, link in the description below, I actually talk about marketing, and I talk about this industry in detail. Like, I've never shied away from sharing this stuff, but it's just insane how this is finally just kind of coming to light. And I always just feel like, when money's this good, it usually doesn't last that long. And this industry didn't really exist before 2016, 2017. Most promoters would be going to Fox, CNBC, all that stuff. Now they're just going online. They're finding social media influencers. They're starting their own YouTube channels. It's a big business to go and help, publicly traded companies start their own social media brands. I was talking to my buddy's daughter about this too. I'm like, we're barely scratching the surface of the reality of what companies are willing to pay to, get their stocks out, or just get their name out there, for that matter, be searchable on YouTube. I mean, a lot of companies just don't exist. So these are a lot of smaller companies, right? It's really interesting. But the thing that I always think is interesting too is, like, we still kind of like I have a deep deal of respect for this guy, just because of, like, he was at the right place at the right time. If you've never heard of Chamath Palpatia, this dude is the king of pump and dump, the king of, like, let's bring companies public and use social influence to boost the stock performance while I liquidate, and I get all the upside because I'm the one bringing them public through something called special purpose acquisition companies. And essentially what these were holding accounts. They were just bank accounts where I could give you cash as an investment. And I say, hey, with that cash, I'm going to go look for a stock or a company that needs to come public under these conditions. And we're just going to merge with them, so they don't have to deal with the messy complications of going through traditional New York Stock Exchange filings and paying millions of dollars. And on top of that, we'll fund the company because we have all that cash you guys are providing us. That's how SPACs worked. But this dude took it to a level of insanity and became a billionaire. When it comes to marketing, this guy just will always stand out to me as just a brilliant genius. And I mean, you read some of the comments. This was only from like a year or two ago, right? It seems like, you just got to read the reply. He says, you said buying SPCE, so Virgin Galactic, he brought public. But basically says it's like owning a tech business. Their profit margin is going to be 80%. I bought SPCE, you sold. Now I'm a big bag holder and I lost everything. Why did you not sell when I sold? What was your underwriting at that time? He's like, how do you live with yourself given the massive losses you inflicted on your SPAC holders? And then he can kind of continue to say, this was right after his wedding too, right? Which everyone was like, whoa, man, this dude just got married. He's just going deep down the Twitter rabbit hole. I didn't inflict any losses. Stop being a victim. The world will pass you by. You are a pump and dumper, nothing more. And Chamath said, I'm in the arena trying stuff. Some will work, some won't, but always learning. You're anonymous and afraid of your own shadow. Enjoy the sidelines. And I think this is just hilarious because the dude knew what he was doing, right? Like, he knew that he was going to go and pump the shit out of these stocks and liquidate them on that massive run up. And it's just funny that, like, it's legal. There's like, this is like the scope that we're seeing on how nefarious like the financial markets truly are, because like a lot of these people do not get fined for any of this stuff. And crypto gets the highlight because that's where we see like immediate rug pulls where people are like actually selling into the community right on launch just to get that quick hype cap. And I mean, that goes on in the markets too. I really recommend watching that Plain Bagel video. You'll find it super interesting. But here's the thing, right? Like, and I want to say this very clearly. It's one thing to fuck around with someone's money. It's another to fuck around with their family. And somebody effed around and found out. And we all know who that is, right? Of course, we're talking about UnitedHealth. You'll see rug pulls, you'll see meme coins ruin people's lives. The stock market is this infinite innuendo of, some people bought really low and they're feeling great about where the price is at. And some people bought some highs and they're feeling really bad. It's this constant mixed emotion of, for one reason, someone's selling, for another, somebody's buying, right? This is why we always try and recommend long-term holds. Don't chase stocks. Because again, I've been through these tides over a decade, multiple times. I've outperformed the market over a decade. I've seen it. I know what's going on here, guys. When you pull valuations forward too aggressively, don't know when it happens, but there's usually a time where these things will correct. But UnitedHealth took it to another level here. I think what we were seeing going on, and it was just ironic because we were like arguing about the Canadian healthcare system in our chat group, our WhatsApp group that you can, again, join through my website, link in the description below. But we were chatting about like Canadian healthcare and, some of the flaws and the difference between US healthcare. But then this happened. And I think this like really, really shined a light on like one really intrinsic fact, which if you are poor in America, the healthcare system is not going to treat you well. If you're poor in Canada, it doesn't matter your income level. If you need immediate care, you get immediate care, and it doesn't bankrupt your family, right? And I think this is the reality. I think so many people have just been like, sighing under their breath especially people that get diagnosed and denied healthcare insurance, considering this company apparently denies 1 in 3 claims. And their stock lost 10% this week because we all know what happened. And I'm not going to explain it, but I found this beautiful video that I think summarizes it incredibly well. It's probably one of the best videos I think I've seen, really, explaining the situation.
Yo, did you hear the CEO of UnitedHealthcare got shot in the streets of Manhattan?
What? Oh, damn, that's crazy.
What, damn, that's crazy. That's the best you got? A man was shot in broad daylight.
I'd like to feel remorse, but he hasn't met his deductible yet.
Whoa.
The assassin used a pistol and a silencer, both of which combined cost less than the average American monthly insurance premium.
I mean, that's objectively true, but still.
He should consider himself lucky that it happened in the street. It can cost as much as 50 grand to die in an American hospital.
Dude.
Oh, is that a 9mm wound that you received? Sorry, your HMO only covers 22 caliber wounds and smaller, but we can upgrade you to larger bullet wounds for a huge fee.
Good Lord.
It might have been possible for him to be saved, but unfortunately, he got shot in Manhattan, and the closest in-network hospital was in Buffalo.
Okay. You're talking about a man's life here, my guy. Don't you think you're getting a little ridiculous?
Oh, you mean ridiculous like an insurance company putting a time limit on anesthesia for surgeries? Because that's what a doctor needs while they're...
And it's funny because that company that was fighting for that backtracked everything. They're like, we're not doing that. We're not fighting to put times on anesthesia. No. Who said that? Everyone's backs and their hair standing up.
They're digging around in your insides. A ticking clock.
Damn. Well, I mean, that may be, but don't you think you're being a little insensitive?
Is it tragic that a man lost his life, a wife lost her husband, and children lost their father? Yes, absolutely. But you know what else is tragic? The millions upon millions upon millions of Americans who are negatively affected every single year by unnecessarily selfish and incredibly cruel health insurance policies. On average, upwards of 45,000 Americans die every single year due to lack of health care, either because of exorbitant costs or because of confusion related to trying to navigate the needlessly and hilariously complex American healthcare industry. On top of all that, over 62% of American bankruptcies are due to medical debt.
You know how crazy that is? I had to look that up when I heard that fact. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Medical debt is the #1 cause of bankruptcy in the United States. You know how crazy that is?
Oh my God.
Armed with that knowledge, you can understand why a lot of people in this country are having a hard time feeling sorry for this man.
I mean, I guess so.
To quote Clarence Darrow, I have never wished a man dead, but I have read some obituaries with great pleasure.
Yeah, I think there's another big problem right now, too. It's almost setting a precedent because it's just like if they catch this guy, now this guy's going to be publicized. He's going to be looked at in awe, like a hero almost. And it's going to lead to, like, I honestly think if they do find the guy, they're going to find him dead. It's going to be like some shootout where he's going to nefariously end up dead because there's just no way you can let a guy like this come to court because it's just going to inspire a whole nother generation of like, oh, it's like Batman. We're turning into Gotham here all of a sudden, where it's just like, I don't know. It's a really peculiar situation when it last year we had the submersible submarine and, billionaires doing stupid stuff was one thing, but now it's just like, hey, like we're crossing a line here, I think, to another extreme. And I mean, we've seen it happen this year too, right? I mean, it is kind of disgusting the level companies are taking to, it's capitalism at its finest. Let's be real, right? We're living in a whole new world of capitalism where basically it's oversell, underdeliver, pay me for an idea if I can convince you it's possible. I mean, I always just really relish in the days of like the iPhone because it was a pure product. When it came out, you bought it, you saw it. It was brilliant. It was great. It revolutionized the entire industry. Now it's, even Apple is selling friggin' AI software that doesn't exist because you can buy the phone, but you're waiting for the update. I mean, that's like the world we live in now, right? Disney was hiding their friggin' agreements. And if you signed up to free Disney Plus, you guys remember this? You sign up to Disney Plus for free. You signed an agreement saying you can't sue them if you die on their properties. Like what? Which Disney obviously reversed. I'm just saying this is the level of like monopolistic, maniacal behavior that capitalism is inspired, right? Like we all know these big companies are now just, they're purely monopolies. When it comes to health insurance, you look at any industry right now, the banking sector, the tech sector, like how can a company the size of Apple that's worth more than like a dozen countries' GDP not be considered a monopoly, right? I'm just saying. So I'm not saying I have the solutions here by any metric. I'm just pointing out some like insane facts, but maybe we'll just take a quick laugh at some of the memes and try and take this as lightheartedly as humanly possible and presume the world keeps ticking on tomorrow.
I ain't seen nothing. I ain't seen nothing. Right. Matter of fact, I'm blind in my left eye.
You know what happens? How can a guy just? How does this just happen in the New York street? Right. This is another good one too.
Wow, no.
I don't know. What do you guys think about all this? Let's read through some of your comments, and then we'll get back into some of the stock talk because there's a lot going on still that I want to get into. With there's still a lot going on, man. It's just like I can't even scratch the surface. Every time I make a video, it's like YouTube's like, be hyper specific, you'll get more views. Like pick a topic, but it's just like shit, man. I can't keep up with it anymore. There's so much going on. So we'll start from the bottom, work way up. How is it legal? I think you're referring to a lot of the SPAC deals and the stuff that we're doing. It's legal because the government regulations are very loose around like how you can, like, I mean, if you go watch the Plain Bagel video, like in one of the contracts with the big companies says that they're literally allowed, because a lot of these big companies, they'll get paid in shares. And in the contract, it literally says the promotion company that's being hired by the publicly traded company is allowed to sell shares before, during, or after promotions, right? So it's just, it is what it is, right? Like all these people do it all the time. I mean, yeah, look at MSTR. Like, that's a great example of like super nefarious, like just bond. Like if you go look at the structure of MSTR, like it gives you the same vibes of what Chamath Palpatia did. Like people find very interesting ways to become very rich. And then eventually what ends up happening is the way they did it doesn't work in the future because usually they had timing and they were on something that a lot of people weren't aware of yet, right? Like SPACs. SPACs came and went. Nobody even talks about SPAC mergers anymore. They're not nearly as hyped as they once used to be. Do you think ELF is, are you talking about like ELF Beauty? Is that ELF? ELVF? I can take a quick look. ELVF. There's a lot of good stocks. Oh, Elevance Health. Oof, man. I don't even want to start talking about healthcare after that insanity. Let's just let the dust settle first before you start talking about healthcare stocks. What do you think? Okay, we're going to go up and then I'll come back down. Do you recommend selling covered calls? I have been able to build my portfolio up. Now I'm seeing it as a way to make extra money. Yeah, no, 100%. I know guys in our group that have done excessively well. Honestly, I recommend doing covered calls in the S&P. I'd rather people own like SPY, enough of it. You need to own a lot of it before you can write covered calls. But if you own enough of it and you can write covered calls, it's the easiest way to cash flow the S&P without actually having to collect dividends and buy other stocks. I think it's one of the most brilliant things you can possibly do if you want cash flow. Purely up to you though. Give a shout out to the Plain Bagel for the video you played. Yeah, he's a gem for sure. Thoughts on Shopify? Shopify, it's another one of those companies where I kind of wish I bought it because I use them a lot and I've used them for years. And I mean, the Shopify store that I started, like literally took like 2 days to set up. And it's always just been an expensive company. And I really wish I bought it, somewhere along here. And I thought about it a lot. I just never did it. It could still be a buying opportunity here. But again, we're in a momentum rally. So I don't know what the intrinsic value of these companies are anymore. I mean, Shopify became a bubble, right? The Canadian tech sector is so limited that like the bubble that formed here was so far worse than most tech companies. Like, I mean, Shopify dropped more than Meta did, from peak to trough. Meta, I mean, think about it, an 80% drop. Whew, man, what a stomaching, I know a lot of people that held this up here and they were just livid. And if they held through, they're starting to see gains again, right? But, oh man, long-term buy it, hold it. It's easier to get it through indexes and let the index ride it. When you're buying stocks like this, guys, you got to understand, like, we're in vertical line mode. And vertical line mode makes sense when stocks are intrinsically cheap, but when fundamentals aren't improving that much or they're not better than they were 5 years ago, why are the stocks trading at premiums to where they were 5 years ago? And I mean like huge premiums. So just be cautious. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying don't buy it. If you're going to cost average into it, just be prepared for volatility. Palantir and MSTR. Yeah, the two best stocks you can buy for momentum right now, baby. If you're into the future of these companies, it's a different story, I think. Except for Palantir. Palantir is a good company. They're just super hyped right now. So what else is going on here, guys? You have two centralized or decentralized. What's to know? I'm not sure what you mean by that. PNG, Kraken Robotics. Yeah, I noticed one of you was pointing this out. Kraken Robotics, I think, is the what do they build? Like submersible robotics. I know a bit about it. I haven't looked into it. The stock's up something like 200%. It's an interesting one. I mean, the whole robotic sector is really interesting right now. If you can find some of these little hidden gems that are rocketing like this and you believe in them, because I mean, honestly, they must have cash flow because they have an actual price to earnings multiple. It's pretty high, but that means there's probably some pretty good growth. $600 million market cap is super small. Let's take a look at the financials real quick and give you guys a quick rundown just out of curiosity. I mean, yeah, the company went from, I don't know what that is back there. Let's look at quarterly. 28, I'm presuming these are in the millions. Yeah, 28 million to, I mean, they haven't had a lot of growth, but they're expected to do what, 91 million? Yeah, why is their growth so meager here in 2024? The last quarterly wasn't crazy. Gross profit hasn't really improved. Why is this stock up so much? Interesting. Is cash flow improving at all? Well, they did go positive on cash flow, so I mean that's probably helping. Not by much though. I mean their cash flow wasn't even $1 million. How is this? Interesting. Very interesting. I don't know, I have to look into it and figure out what the hype is, but definitely a high flyer with not a lot of growth. Talk more about Aduro. What makes you confident to bring it up to 10% of your portfolio? Oof. So this is an interesting one. I can abbreviate to it quickly, but more or less because it's risky. 100% it's risky. I don't find a lot of risky companies where I get that comfortable with them. It's just that like I have listened to this. I've watched this for almost 3 years now. And I'm just looking at a company like Pure Cycle. For those of you that don't understand what's going on and are new to this, I'll give you a quick introduction. Pure Cycle is a company that has a patented hardware that I think Procter & Gamble pretty much owns. And essentially it allows them to take plastic and convert it back into fuel, like oil. And they built a massive facility that is starting to move like millions of pounds of this shit, and they're turning it back into profitable fuel, right? And this stock hasn't done anything since it came public, but recently the stock has started to go up on that news. And this company's trading at a $2.3 billion market cap. Aduro, on the other hand, is one of the only other I think scalable players because their technology can do so much more, and yet the company's trading at a far less value. And I can only presume that's because they're farther behind in building, the company out and commercializing it. And I'm just thinking that if the company gets to the level that Pure Cycle's at in the next year, I mean, there's no reason this shouldn't be trading at $1 billion. I mean, we're talking about an entire revolution in the waste management sector. I mean, think about waste management. Think about like even to own right now, like if you don't want the risk of Aduro, I'm just saying pay attention to the space. Like I've seriously considered making huge investments in waste management. And I look at them all the time. Waste Connection. These are like the most safest investments you're going to make. What's the Waste Connection? WCN stock. These companies right now, they're on the forefront of being able to take what once was a completely cost ineffective thing that has been really eating into their margins forever, and now turning it into a whole new revenue stream that's going to be able to generate millions of dollars, which is crazy. I mean, like plastic, 90% of plastic ends up in a landfill right now. Think about that. And these companies are processing a lot of plastic. And guess where it goes? It costs them money to process it. It costs them money to put it in the landfill. Everything about plastic is a complete nightmare to the entire world of civilization right now. Like plastic, everyone was the most genius thing we ever made. And then we quickly realized it's one of the most inefficient things we ever made. It doesn't deteriorate. We can't do shit with it. And it just like gets into our bloodstream, our oceans, tires, you name it. There's plastic in everything. And guess what? For the first time ever, we can turn it back into fuel and you reuse it to make more plastic or use it as fuel or other things. Like, I don't think people understand like what this means for these mega cap companies. They're all looking at it right now. You talk to any major high up or anybody involved in these companies, they're going to all the trade shows. They're all paying attention to it. They don't know how it's going to come into fruition, but they're all just waiting. And they're like, I mean, and yeah, this is just so under-recognized. So I love it. I mean, just take a listen to this, right? Like I just see these videos all the time.
Dropped cold drink cups with trackers attached inside into recycling bins at Starbucks locations. Some never generated a signal, but 36 did. And we tracked those cups until they stopped. Here's what we found. 14 trackers last pinged at landfills. Another 13 went to waste transfer stations, places that don't recycle plastic. They compact trash before sending it to a landfill. 5 ended up at incinerators that burn trash, and only 4 pinged at locations that accept recycling.
Yeah, welcome to the world of plastic, and it's about to get revolutionized, and there's only a couple players. There's only a handful of players to pay attention to, and Aduro is one of them, and there's like a $200 million market cap company. The technology is probably worth $1 billion plus, and they're either going to get bought out. I'm pretty confident we're past the point of vaporware. I think this is a real technology, and if it is exactly what like I'm saying it is, I mean, we're literally talking about a multi-billion-dollar technology. They have 10 clients they're testing it with that are all $40 billion plus market cap companies. And their pilot program right now is producing over 500 pounds, I think, of oil a day right now. And that's just their test pilot. I mean, they're scalable, they're modular. There's nothing technical about it. They can build these things anywhere with just basic materials, basic industrial materials. Like I said, I've been down the rabbit hole so deep that I'm just like, all right, fuck it. I'm like, you know what? It doesn't come by my desk very often where like I feel good about something. So if it helps the world out and I can vote with my dollars and also, try and get rich off it as well, like, it's the best of everything. It's how I used to feel about Tesla, but the valuation has gotten too out of control. And it's just crazy. The PE is 52. If you're talking about the robotics company, it is high, but it's a small cap company. I mean, Aduro has no value. They don't make any cash flow. They make a little bit off some of their test stuff, but the real day comes when commercialization, which is like next year in 2026, 2 more years. That's all we really got to wait. Do you buy Canadian? Do you buy the Canadian or US stock? Always US. So like somebody was asking me about this. They're like, why are you buying Aduro on the US market? And I just said, look, like I'm converting Canadian dollars right now at probably the worst time. Let's be real. Like if you just take a look at the CAD dollar chart, I did convert some to pay off the mortgage a bit, but like I told you guys, like I'm not going to wait around. I'm not going to wait around to see the dollar like recover. I'm not going to gamble on it by any metric, but like it continues to go down, right? So even though I'm converting dollars right now to buy US, one of two things will either happen. Either the Canadian dollar is going to continue to get weaker on the back of interest rate cuts, and I'm going to continue to see a higher rate of return off my US investments, or the Canadian dollar starts to recover. My US investments might not look as great, but guess what? I'm still going to use those US dollars. I'm still going to be buying US companies with any profit I make off US stocks. I'm still going to be spending US dollars. I still pull US dollars out of my bank account. And I'm honestly thinking about opening up multiple currencies because Royal Bank just allowed me to buy, like, I can trade in almost any currency right now. So I'm thinking about, I was looking at stocks like Hershey and a couple other companies, and I was thinking that it would be great to, look at some of these suppressed dividend stocks, or even look at some European dividend ETFs and just buy them in euro, because it's like I go to Europe. It's fun traveling. Euros are great to own. I mean, there's a lot of currencies that are very dominant that I think, it's just nice to have multiple income sources from multiple currencies. Makes me sleep a bit easier at night. But what are your thoughts on TD after the big drop recently? Would you consider? I buy it in VDY. As I told you guys, like our top biggest positions right now, if we break them down literally by dollar value, is Apple, Meta, Google, Microsoft, Royal Bank, and Nvidia. I think are the 5 or 6 largest. TD is actually in the top 10 just because of its weighting in VDY, right? So like when everyone thinks just because I'm buying an ETF, I'm like, I'm not buying these stocks and I'm bearish on them or something like that, but I'm literally owning them through the ETF. And somehow people think you're not. It's like, oh, you're just buying an ETF. That's lame. You're not really buying anything. Well, it's like if I own $100,000 worth of VDY, 10,000 of that is going to be allocated toward Toronto Dominion Bank. And that's not like a small amount, it's still a sizable chunk. And if Toronto Dominion ever has a wicked rally, like I'm going to see those returns, not to the same extent. But again, we're talking about, the wife and I have, a higher net worth, and I'm not concentrated like I once was because I just don't have the balls. I don't want to risk the wealth we built. So, it's the joys of diversification. It's just like it's like if somebody asks you, should you own Bitcoin? No. Should you own tech stocks? No. Should you own dividend stocks? No. You should own all of it. It's like, as soon as you start picking on one or the other, you just become, a tool to your own demise. Because again, look at crypto. If you didn't own crypto, I mean, Jesus, I wish I owned a bit more of it. I'm a little disappointed that we didn't own just a bit more, but I just have a hard time. So I'm like, I can't even get out of my own way. It's like, detrimenting my own portfolio that I'm not as aggressive because I'm in this kind of scarcity phase. And that's another weakness, right? Like, I mean, you guys can recognize it in myself. Like, I think for me, my risk tolerance, and again, if you want to see the wife's portfolio and the combined values, I'm just leaving it for the chat group. And if you go purchase my courses, the link's in the description below. I'm going to be updating videos there regularly. You can see it. I'm not going to share it here out of her respect. So if you want to have her respect, you got to pay for it. But when you look at our portfolios, like, I know Apple's the biggest position, and it's about 4.9% of our entire portfolio. And that makes me sleep easy. Honestly, if I was smarter and I had the cojones I had before the 2022 crash, I had to just loaded up and made the top 10 positions more about Palantir, Meta. I'd be more aggressive on the big tech companies. I'd weight them much higher than I do right now. Technology makes up about 20% of our portfolio, or I think it's about 20%. I'd have to double check. It's, even my weighting allocations, I make sure they're very appropriate per sector, because I'm just a little bit on edge. Bring back the yeah, but it's back. How is it not back? I mean, guys, we are in the MindMed market. I mean, Palantir's up how much? I could point at like 10 stocks right now that are up like 500+% in the last year. I'm like, buddy, you could throw a dart at a board. I mean, look at this, 360%. You could have bought this anytime this year. What about NVIDIA? Like, NVIDIA's a mega cap, and you could have messed around with that at any point in time and have done excessively well this year. These are the markets where we get rich, right? I mean, like our portfolio, the wife and I, even my portfolio, guys, I bought a property last year. I liquidated most of my portfolio and I made almost all of it back in a year. You know how dumb that is? That doesn't make any sense. I think my portfolio went down to like 160, 170K. And then literally within a year, we're almost at like 350 already. Like, what the fuck happened? It's like, I didn't see that coming. I'm up over this doesn't even include like my Tesla gains that I made this year. There was another 10 grand that I made. The account gain is like 72 G's. I'm going to reset all of this, by the way, next year. I think as soon as the year turns over, I'm just going to reset all my gains just so we can track the comparable performance against just like other ETFs or whatever. But yeah, I mean, between that and the dividends we've collected, which we don't even include the dividends in our total returns, in our gains that you see in this chart. But yeah, I mean, between gains and dividends and stocks that I've traded this year, my God, we've all made a stupid amount of money for no reason. I think all of us have probably made our salary this year, at least. If you've had even if you had 50 or 100K invested, you should have done pretty well. I mean, even if you put it in the S&P 500, you had 100 grand, you made like 30K this year. It's kind of wild. I got XRP in 2021, you lucky bastard. And I hope you're taking some profit or diversifying it. CBC did a huge thing on plastic and plastic going to dumps. Yeah, like I said, I don't like a lot of small cap companies. I talk about a lot of them. They still sponsor me on my channel now and again, and I'll talk about them just to give them some light. But again, it's if I want to scale one without taking on too much risk and one that like I feel comfortable with, Aduro is just floated to the surface. So we'll see what happens. It'll be a neat play. It'll definitely be neat to see what the next year brings for it. Either they get to commercialization and the stock goes to the friggin' moon, or it becomes more or less vaporware and the competitors take over. But I like I said, I've never been more confident in a company that's small. So again, not financial advice, just how I personally feel. But on that note, folks, it's been a really fun evening catching up. It's been a shit show of a week. I really hope everybody is, getting ready for 2025. Like I said, in my age, I've become more bearish seeing markets like this, but I am just absolutely intrigued, entertained, always going to be all in the market no matter what. I'm not going to sideline anything for reasons like we're seeing right now, but I don't think next year is going to be, I think if Trump does what he wants to do, even the US is in for a rocky ride. We're in for a rocky ride. Everyone's in for a shit show, calamity. I don't know what to do. I don't know. I really don't. Crypto and everything, all this stuff is running on complete hype. And there's nothing fundamental that has changed other than Trump, said a few things. And, he's also saying tariffs and a lot of other things. And I don't know what's going to happen. You guys tell me what you think is going to happen. I'm just going to be here for the ride. I hope you guys will join me, for better or for worse. We're in it together. Let's hope the system doesn't collapse and we can kind of keep trucking along. Stay cool. Stay awesome, folks. Let's keep the passive income dream alive. Peace.